Now in lab 8-5, we're going to code a cell phone minute calculator based on the pseudocode that's below. Now we have a couple decisions in here, and then primarily what we're going to check with this lab is input validation so that they enter a yes or no, and then also we're going to do range checking and then some calculations. So read through the program and follow the pseudocode. In main, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a while loop to run our program multiple times. Now, this is a little bit different in Raptor because what we want to do is to ensure that end program, when we ask them to enter in a yes or no, that they indeed enter in a yes or no. So typically you have, if end program is equal to yes, then it will end the program. And you would have your calls to your modules inside of here. Now what we want to do is add another loop so that if what they enter is not a yes or a no, then we can validate that. So here, before we end our loop, we ask our question, do you end the program yes or no, and we put that into end program, just like we normally would. Now before this question gets hit, what we do is we add another loop to validate this process. Now our question is end program. If our end program is equal to yes or end program is equal to no, because those are valid responses, then it goes down to check whether or not it does. If it's not a yes or no, because that's what we're checking, what we're going to do is ask for our input again and tell them they must enter a yes or no. You will make it clear. You must enter a yes or no. So it has to be those two spellings exactly. Now we're going to run this program just to test our loop, even though there's nothing going on in here. So we run it, it's no. Do we want to end our program? We have two options, yes or no. So if we say no, for example, that doesn't meet the requirement, so what it's going to do is hit this code again and say you must enter a yes or no. Yep. Again, it'll keep running around this loop. Now when we do hit a yes or no, exactly lowercase, then it'll break out of the loop and do what you had asked it to do in the program. So that's the input validation and how main should look for your programs. Now if we're following the pseudocode for here, after we code, what we've coded is that loop and we've coded this here. So we have the error code. And then we have the details of the program here. So the first thing that you do is you're going to declare your variables. I'm going to put this in a module. And we have a series of variables that you can go ahead and input like you normally would. After that, what we're going to do is we're going to start getting how many minutes are allowed in our program. So if we look, we're going to call a module called getAllowed. And we're going to in here, ask how many minutes are allowed. Now the details of this module allow for only 200 to 800 minutes. So cell phone plans at our company only range between 200 and 800. So you cannot have a 100-minute plan, you cannot have a 900-minute plan. It must be between that value. So we'll go back here, we'll call our module getAllowed. And over here, we start by asking how many minutes are in our plan. And let me just check the name of that variable. That goes into a variable called minutes allowed. Now this is the variable that we want to do range checking for. Now here, we are going to make sure that it's within the range. So if minutes allowed, typically we say less than 200 or greater than 800, but those are valid, because raptor's opposite, we have to do it opposite. So we want to say if greater than or equal to 200 and minutes allowed are less than or equal to 800, meaning it's between that range, then those would go on with the rest of the code. If not, what we want to do is to fix this problem. So we will say you must enter between 200 and 800 minutes, and we're going to then put that back into our variable. So here, again, we'll test this portion of the program. Oh, I have a syntax error. Let me just take that out real quick. We're going to test this portion of our to delete that in order. We're going to test this portion, the get allowed, to make sure that it's correct. So we put in 100, and then it'll hit our error code saying we must enter in a valid value. So we'll continue on, and then when we do enter something that's valid, such as 500, it'll break out of that loop and continue on. So we have our two main things there. Just throw back in my declared variables. Now at that point, when we're following the pseudocode, we're down here, so we've coded now this portion with our code. Now you're then going to code a get used, how many minutes were used module, and what that does is it takes in minutes used, and for here we cannot use negative values. So we just want to double check that with another loop, and if it is a negative value, we keep looping around. So that'll be similar to what we've done here. Then we have a module that'll calculate our total, and in that, follow the pseudocode to write your nested if-else and the formulas that are listed. And then at that point, we can print our data. So we have an additional 3 modules that would be inside of main right here that would finish up the code.